Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Welcome to Creative Studio Live for yet another week. This is our weekly show where we debate a hot topic in the world of recording and home recording and music. And this week we're talking about virtual drums versus real drums. Can you get a good sound from virtual drums, or do you need to use real drums? That's what we'll be discussing for the next 30 minutes or so. And as usual, I am joined by my buddy Mike over at Creative Source. How are you this week, Mike?
It's I really need some virtual drums, so I'm kind of rubbish at playing these. It's all about drums this week, isn't it, Pete? I'm very well, thank you. I did a review this week on some drums. They're called Malachi drums on my channel, and they're kind of like very epic drums, and I like epic drums because I'm an epic kind of guy.
You like things that are in the epic zone, yeah.
Very sort of Game of Thrones music kind of drums. Had fun with those, and there's an awesome deal on them because I hate to sound very commercial, but there's 89% off of their price at the moment. Anyway, you can check out my channel and see that video if you want to get those. And that's what I've been up to. But what about you, Pete? What's happening in GarageBand world?
Well, what's been happening in GarageBand world? So I've reviewed a few things this week. I've done a few videos. Probably the highlight for me has been the Visibel app that I actually demoed and did a video on this week, which was very cool, which is an iOS video visualizer for your music videos. So that is something very cool that not only iOS people can get into, but anyone can actually.
What do you mean visualizer? What does it do?
So what does the visualizer do? Well, a lot of folks are trying to release music and they're struggling perhaps because these days people don't just want to have the audio on their videos. They want people want to watch a video. They want something interesting. So these are the old school, like you got the flares and you got the waveforms. And you can put your album covers in there and some text.
On games consoles and stuff, sometimes when you played music, it did all that.
You know. Exactly. And if people are familiar with Winamp, the old Windows media player, cool stuff. Yeah. So yeah, so I was looking for something like that because a lot of people are saying to me, how do I share my music? How do I actually get music out there? And I'm like, well, I'm going to find something, and I did, and I found this app, and it's very cool. So
you're the kind of man, aren't you? You're the kind of man.
Yes, yes. I'm not handy, as we've discussed, but we'll talk about that later. But yes, I like to do. I like to find cool things to do. But we've got some drumming to talk about, do we not?
We do have some drumming to talk about.
Excellent. And as usual, if you don't know the format of the show, what we do is we toss a coin. This is an Australian 50-cent piece. This is our most unique looking coin because it's a decagon. No, it's not. It's a dodecagon. Anyway, I'm going to toss this and you need to tell me if you want a head or a tail, and then you will get to choose whether you are virtual or whether you are going to be a real mic tonight. So give me a head or a tail.
I always like a little head, so I'm heads.
Well, alas, you are incorrect because there is our tail, which is a emu and a kangaroo. That's how Australian we are. We're just like, let's just chuck our best animals on the best coin. There we go.
I swear you're using some dodgy coins there, Mr.
Absolutely. At least I actually have a coin this week. I think the last couple of times I've just used a pick or a plectrum, as we like to call it, using the Queen's English. So I get to choose, which means I am going to go virtual because I use virtual drums and I like them. So I'm going to let you start, but you are going to have to talk about why real drums are superior to virtual drums. And we're going to cut it down. Should we go 4 points today? We want to keep it.
Yeah, we're going to keep it down to 4 points. And talking of points, nice if someone in the comments could be judge. I'm going to pick a name here at random. Not really at random. I think Earthling can be in charge of points this week. He was in early. He's all comfortable. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. Earthling, a great supporter of mine. Can I say what excellent comments and contributions Earthling makes to my channel all the time? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. All right.
Now, can we get extra points for any puns?
Or no.
No. Okay. All right.
And no extra points for drummer jokes. I've got to put that out there up front street.
Okay. All right. I'll try not to fill in with jokes. So yeah, it's an interesting one. This one. I think I hear a lot of debate about this And I think it's something that's sorely missing from today's music. I think actually a massive percentage of music now doesn't have real drums on. And there's nothing quite like a real drummer. But in many ways, it's quite subtle. It's the little offbeats, it's the little mistakes almost, that you get from a real drummer playing the drums. So probably not obvious to the untrained ear, if I might sound a little bit elitist about it. But to those of us who, really enjoy music and listen in some detail, then certainly, deductive for bad puns, certainly, I think it's in very subtle sort of ways that drummers really add to music in a big way. So that's a short point from me. Yes, yeah, I wish I could have made it a bit more upbeat, but it's a serious topic. So
is that pun number one? Earthling's deducting points for any puns. Right, I'm going to ride on into my first point now, and I'm glad you brought up sound quality because I've got that on here as well. Because you know what, if you've used virtual drums lately, the sound quality is actually quite amazing. Because gone are the days of the like pressing the Casio autoplay and getting the rumba beat. Everyone's done that, right?
That was awesome.
That was awesome. So that's the first virtual drums. But no, these days we're talking about high resolution quality samples from real drum kits. So people are micing up drums and they're hitting them and they're getting quality samples. So like maybe you're saying that real is good, but if you're using virtual drums, you're using the same drums. Like in fact, you're probably using better drums, because if you've ever tried to mic up a drum kit, which we'll talk about later, then you'll realize how difficult it is to get that sound. So wouldn't you rather have someone who's already gone to that effort, they've already recorded the sample, you get that high quality sound that you can go, and then you've got all of the other benefits that we'll be talking about in our other 3 points around the flexibility, the ease of use, and the ability to get started and get cracking straight away. So that is point number one for virtual drums, is the sound quality. So the same point is, well, not quite the same point. You don't need a real drummer. That's the
okay. You've made many points in your second point. I mean,
I think I've just done all of them.
I don't think you did all of them, but it's a good point, but all obvious points, of course. So I don't know. But look, it's interesting. That sort of perfection you're talking about and that high quality is certainly what they aim for. There's no doubt. I can concede to you that many of these virtual drums are recorded in top-class studios with top-class drums, microphones, etc. But it's sort of the imperfection which really makes it cool. I was watching a really interesting video the other day by, I know he's a favourite of yours, Mr. Joe Gilder over what's his channel called? Home Studio
Corner. That's right.
And he was talking about how he'd left his studio and gone off to record this band somewhere. They paid him to go and record in their practice room, and after they'd set up and everything, there was very little isolation, and especially from the drums, etc. There was a lot of bleed. And I think, so obviously when you record drums individually, bleed is not an issue. I know a lot of them have overhead mics which have everything in, but that perfection is not always a good thing. He was saying the end result was, with all of the perceived imperfection, that the actual result was a really, really lively recording, which sounded like a real band playing rather than sounding artificial. So sometimes it's the imperfection of it all which actually really works well in a musical sense and in an energy sense. So that's my second point.
Well, I do enjoy a good imperfection. I know you're all about being imperfect, Mike. So not surprising that you've gone straight to that. And foul play. Using Joe Gilder against me as well. I'm a fanboy. I'm the Australian Joe Gilder. I've even trying to lose my hair so that I look just like Joe Gilder. Sorry, Joe. Like you're watching the show. So let's go in with point number 2, because you made a good point there. So Joe, or anyone who has ever been and tried to record a live drum kit, how many pieces in your average drum kit do you reckon there would be, Mike?
Let me count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It depends how many toms you have. 7, 8, 9. How many cymbals? But you're going to use, like, say, 2 or 3 overheads, 2 overheads in a room mic for your cymbals and stuff.
Yep.
3 mics. Probably, look, let's just guess around about 8 mics or something like that. Yeah.
8 mics. Okay. So what we're needing is at least an 8-channel interface, probably 16 if you're going to actually be recording anything else at the same time. And you're going to need, how many different mics? About 8 different microphones there of different types and qualities. You need a microphone for your bass drum, not your kick drum. We say bass drum. And for your overheads, you need some good mics. You might need an SM57 to capture that nice cracking snare sound. So how much time, money, and energy are you committing to miking up your drum kit? And it doesn't kind of end there, because you mic up your drum kit, you record some sounds. Are you going to leave all your mics sitting there in front of your drums all the time? No, probably not. You're probably going to use them for other purposes. So every single time you need to record some drums on a real kit, you need to spend that time. And have you ever heard this sound? I should have got a snare so I could just like, ish, ish, ish. You get that, Barry? Ish.
That doesn't sound anything like it.
Turn it up and down. Ish, ish. Like, how's the game going? Ish. Ish, like an hour of that, and I just want to crawl up the wall. It is the most boring thing. Miking up drums in live or in studio. Yeah. So a virtual drum kit, in 1 minute, you can say attach virtual drums, program in, and you are playing. There you go. Convenience, point number 2.
Okay. Now, probably Earthling here seems to have caught onto the theme of my my points here. So I've got to have to skip point 3 and go on to point 4, because it's sussed out that I'm regurgitating the same point again. But anyway,
Clutching.
Look, I guess this is a real point. That it's all well and good, but what virtual drums are people using? So they're using, say, the Tune Tracks ones, Easy Drummer, that kind of thing. And then there's I'm trying to think of the top of my head. Addictive Drums is another popular one. Then in GarageBand, how many different kits do you have in GarageBand?
About 12 to 14 now, I think.
Yep. So the issue is that most people just tend to load in a kit and play. And there's a sort of thing happening where a lot of people's songs are sounding very much the same in terms of the drums, because they're all using the same sounds. In fact, they're all using the same samples. So it's creating less variation in the whole sphere of music, which is a real negative. We need more variation. I think I hate to sound like the grumpy old guy here, but we're living in very bland musical times, to be honest with you. That's just what I think. I mean, say if you agree with me in the comments, but and it's nice to have variation and odd sounds. I mean, maybe if you're going to, use virtual drums, start to make your own sample libraries and things, so at least you're different. But yeah, that's my third point.
Well, I'm only going to say it's a slightly good point because it was actually also on my list if I happen to get that side. But that aside, it's still not a bad point. And you say, I hate to be the grumpy old man. I thought that's what you loved to be. Well, that was what you were to be.
You've got me there. Yeah.
By the way, quick score check. Peter's at 7,140 points and Mike minus 500. So
I was reading that. I was going, round 1. Pete is minus 700. 7,000.
Oh, okay. Is that what you reckon?
Minus 500. So
minus 500, which as we know is a
minus is a plus, isn't it? So
exactly.
Yeah.
Instantly regretting that you put Earthling in charge of the scoring here. And hello to everyone else who is watching here live. I did mean to say that at the start, but if you're here live and you've got comments and you've got things you want to say about this, please say them in the chat as we go through here. If you're watching on the replay, though, you haven't missed out. Please leave your comments. What do you think? Who won the debate? Because you're watching in the future, so you get to decide. And what do you think? Real or virtual drums? Which do you use? I've got a poll on my channel, and I'm going to reveal the results of that poll at the end of this video, because it's very interesting around how many people use virtual drums versus real drums these days. And you might be a bit sad for the future of your really mixed up music there, Mike, because
I am, well, we'll see. But I'm just noticing the comments there. This had occurred to me when we were talking about it. I hope I get the name right. Solrack M7 is just pointing out that, of course, when you mic up drums, if you do it properly, you would be miking up some of the drums at the top and the bottom. So you were saying a mic on the kick, but often they have more than one mic on the kick. So I don't know if that is working for me or against me. That I just want to point out that little detail, which we've been sort of correct.
That is a good point. Yes, exactly.
And also, the Earthling awarded me 100,000 points for the Bland Musical Times comment. So
excellent. You're way ahead now. Excellent. Great stuff there. Let's jump in because I've got 2 more cracking points here to get on with, and yes, I am using my phone.
We're only doing 4 tonight.
Yeah. Well, I'm on number 3. I've only had 2. So, you've had 2 and I've had 2. Come
True,
on. Go. We've both said the same thing 4 times. That's why it feels like it's a lot longer. Let's talk about cost, shall we? Because, who's got all the money? I certainly don't. I'm pretty sure that you don't. You've just spent $400,000 on your new studio desk. So you don't have all the money right now. So getting started with drum kits, so with virtual drum kits. Now, as a GarageBand user, and yes, I'm going to totally placate to my audience who are generally mobile creators and generally are au fait with GarageBand. As I mentioned before, we've got about 14 kits in there. And you know how much it costs to record a drum track using your GarageBand virtual drummer? It's about $0.00 right now.
Wow, but what does it cost you in terms of self-pride? I mean, that's
cost you your reputation. Well, we can get into that later. Yes, so the cost is actually nothing to get started. Now, I'm actually, I hate to say this, and I'm actually looking to buy some drums. My eldest daughter is just taken up drums. She's being taught drums by an excellent drum teacher here in Adelaide, which happens to be my wife's cousin, because mates rates, all that jazz. But yeah, she's learning drums, and of course, I'm now in the market for buying a drum kit, and I'm not going to buy an acoustic drum kit, because to buy a good acoustic drum kit, you're spending a lot of coin, and even to buy an electronic drum kit, which are technically real, and we've got a whole nother show where we're gonna have to talk about e-drums versus actual acoustic drums, but that's for another day. But yeah, we're talking $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 to get started. So there's point number 3. If you are starting out, you're in home recording, you're in a home studio, you don't have a whole lot of coin, then virtual drums are exactly what you need.
Okay, well, it's a fair point. Yes, I'm not sure that the topic of tonight's conversation was which is cheapest, real drums or virtual drums. But anyway, we'll give you that one. It's good to hear your daughter's taking up drums. There's not enough female drummers around, is there?
No, and I didn't want to have a good relationship with my neighbours, so win-win.
Who were the female drummers? Karen Carpenter was a drummer.
Was she?
From the Carp, she was, as well as being the singer, she was the drummer.
Wow, there you go. She was a Phil Collins of female drummers.
She was a Phil Collins of female drummers. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and didn't Prince have a female drummer? Was that Sheena E?
Oh, was it?
I don't know.
I don't know either. Let us know if you're here live. Let us know some
good female drummers, so we can inspire Pete's daughter to
be the next big thing in drumming. Anyway, Mike, you've got one more point to go, so it better be an absolute walker.
I was trying to. Right, okay, let me have a look. No, that's the same as the first one. No, that's the same as the second one. Okay. Here's the thing, and it's not necessarily a fault of virtual drums, but there's an awful temptation. I see this all the time. That if you're using virtual drums, what do? You put in the beat for the first verse, and what do you do for the second verse? You copy and paste across. Maybe there's a variation in the chorus, so you copy and paste all the way through the songs, and what you have produced is sort of monotony. You will very rarely get that with a real drummer. Whenever you compare a real drummer's first verse to a second verse, there will be tiny variations, either through skill or lack of skill on their part.
That's because most drummers can't keep the beat. Isolating all drummers.
Started on drummers.
Hey.
But mind you, it's the only thing they do have to concentrate on, isn't it? They don't have to worry about melody or anything. The rest of us musicians have to worry about both things. But anyway, some of us harmony as well. Anyway, why am I getting so bitchy about drummers? Some of my best friends are drummers. Anyway, Yeah, so that's my point. You will get natural variation from the human doing it without them even trying. You'll get that variation, and that's a beautiful part about music. And yeah, I think that's my final point.
Yes, when you're debating and you reach your final point, you start laughing at your own ineptitude. Then you know that you're probably struggling. But I did choose a fairly that was a good coin flip to win. Shall I say? Yes.
Before you make your final point,
Oh God.
we've got a joke. How
Oh,
can you tell there is a drummer at the door?
oh.
The knock keeps speeding up.
Was that in the chat or was that just a
That
mic special?
was in the chat. That wasn't.
Oh, okay, that's right. I'll forgive you then because I did put a veto on the drama jokes from the start. Because I know you've got a bunch. All right, let's bring it on home. I've got so many additional points here to choose from. It's a matter of which one I'll go with. That's the problem.
Sure you have.
We've talked time, we've talked flexibility, we've talked sound quality, we've talked cost. Have I said 4 things? Anyway, I'm going to say finally it is education. So you might think this is a bit of a weird one to finish on, and in hindsight, I'm really not that happy that I am finishing on it. But I've learned so much since I've started using virtual drums because I'm not a drummer, funnily enough. Because I have lots of friends. So I've learned a lot about drumming and about beats and about rhythm and about how to actually put a good drum part together because I've used virtual drums. So using the presets, using the different things you can bring into your drums, that has actually showed me. I've learned about ghost notes. You know, there's a thing called ghost notes.
I love ghost notes and flams as well. Get your
Yeah.
ghost.
And I know there's something called a paradiddle. Did you know what a
I love
paradiddle?
paradiddles.
Paradiddles are the bomb. Like all these things. Seriously, drummers have the. I know I just teased drummers and said they have no friends, but drummers have the best words for everything. Seriously, if I could play an instrument that had ghost notes and paradiddles, I would be all over it. So I think I need to become a drummer. I think I'm actually just ruining my final point because now I want to go and play some drums. But it has actually helped me. And again, the ability to be able to tweak and to be able to change things, to be able to learn about the drum patterns, to be able to change things up on the fly. Yes, I just think the virtual drums are the way to go, and definitely the way to go for me, who has no drumming talent whatsoever.
Oh, that was a mic drop, is it? Oh, good.
I'm not talented. Good night, people.
Well, now we get to talk about our real.
We do. We like this bit. So Mike, lay it all on the table. What do you think? Are virtual drums?
I actually agree with the points I made.
Yeah.
But I will point out a couple. Well, I'll point out a couple of things on the side of, and this wasn't one of my points, but we don't often hear real drums these days. I must admit, I don't go down to my local pub very much these days and watch live bands and what have you. But me and the family went out last year to see, what's it called? Cirque du Soleil. Did I pronounce that correct?
Probably not.
Probably not. But in the middle of that particular show, because they have tremendous musicians playing in that show, and in the middle of the show, the sort of drum riser got pushed out into the middle, and the drummer did a drum solo, something I haven't seen like the 1970s or Genesis or something, right? And it kind of stole the show for me. Like it was just incredible to be in front of a really, really good drummer doing their stuff. You know, it's all about power and you know, it's a big sound and all that, but it was mesmerizing and enormously entertaining. Having said that, I wouldn't like that same drummer to come to my home studio. First of all, they wouldn't fit in. And second of all, I wouldn't have any friendly neighbors left. And so that's kind of getting a bit more to where I'm really at. I love virtual drums. I do think that they get a bad name in a way because people use them so poorly.
Yeah.
Now, I think I have got a video. Well, I definitely have a video on my channel about using virtual drums, and I think it's like any virtual instrument. You have to put something into it. It's not going to do it all for you. You really got to put the effort to learn about it, to listen to the real instrument. So even if you're doing a violin or whatever, listen to violins, listen to what they really do, what kind of articulations they have. So I think it's incumbent, if I might use such a nice word, incumbent upon the person programming it to you know, up their skill level and do their best in terms of programming it. Yeah, so that's my 2 cents worth. What do you say, Johns?
What do I say? Well, as always, I say what my community say. So, and 71% of those use virtual drummers as their primary source of drums for their tracks. And that's out of 214 votes. So that's a pretty decent sample size. It's 140. I'm not good at maths. That's a lot of people that like their virtual drums, and I believe the same thing. In fact, when I was first learning how to program virtual drums and starting to teach people, the point that I make when it comes to virtual drums is don't forget that drummers have 2 hands and 2 feet. And the biggest mistake you can make when programming virtual drums is to like play too many things. So the easiest way to make it sound like a robot or like a computer playing, not a human, is to add. And look, if you want that sound, more power to you. Like we live in a world where you can have 4 drummers playing in your same track if you want to, go for it. But keep in mind that if you want a realistic rock jam band sound, don't go pretending that your drummer can play 4 toms at one time, because they don't have enough arms because they've only got 2. Or if in Def Leppard, they've only got 1. But yeah, they don't have enough arms and legs to actually play all the bits. So make sure that you are programming in. So I'm mirroring for what whack the mic. For once we agree, Mike, that yes, virtual drums are the way to go if you program them well. Treat them nice.
And on that as well, not just programming, but the mixing side as well, you know, because a lot of them, I'm talking here obviously in terms of PC or Mac in a DAW. A lot of them load up and they just go through a stereo channel on the console. And a lot of them have already got, you know, EQ and compression, etc. applies to them. So I think it's important in the mixing process to make sure, I mean, I think it's best to send them all out to separate channels and then treat them as you would real drums. Tailor them to your particular song, EQ them for your particular song, and don't just stick with the sort of standard settings or, you know, the basic settings that they come with is my advice for what
that is some very fine advice. And yes, I will heed that, as well as I'm working on songs at the moment and trying to not just make them sound generic and not just go, here's 8 bars, loop for the next 64 bars, and then we're good to go. Yes, that is all good points, and I think we're going to finish it up probably on time. This might be the first time we might have actually stuck within. So the four seems to be working, Mike, because we're actually going to finish on time tonight.
Yep, that's cool.
So
nice to see so many people in the chat there. I've been reading it.
Yes, and you've had lots of good things to say. I'll run through and just say hello to everyone that's here. We've got Earthling, D. Malhotra, we've got Recording Studio 9 over there. We've got John Humperson, Earthling we've talked about, Into Ellie's, Soul Rack, Jade Star's been here, Jeff Brown's been here, Cyclone Slick and Boston Bard. So welcome to everyone, and I've probably missed some people there and have made them really angry now, and they'll never watch us again. But next week, we will be back doing this thing live again every Thursday night here. It's Thursday morning, very early morning on the West Coast, but a little bit more civil on the East Coast. And it's about middle of the day in the UK and Europe. So grab your lunch if you're in those areas and join in for some Creative Studio Live. Do we have a topic for next week, Mike? We didn't even discuss this before.
Topic. I'd love to hear from people in the comments and about the topic, or if they're watching the replay. And another point, I'm going to set a goal for this show.
Ooh.
Right, I'm going to say not for next week, but a long-running goal. I'm going to put it in public, because they say once you say things in public, that makes them like real. We both mentioned that we're big fans of Joe Gilder. So I think it should be a goal of our show at some point we're too tiny at the moment, but to get Joe Gilder on the show as a participant. So I'd just like to say to people in the comments, if you're watching the replay on the comments now, just say, I want Joe. And if we can build, it's kind of like a petition, all right? If you just say, I want Joe, enough times, then maybe we can get his attention. If you don't know Joe Gilder is, then look him up. He's awesome.
Absolutely. Go to homestudiocorner.com and check out Joe Gilder. And yes, put I want Joe in the comments here, and also go over to his channel and like put that on the comments about don't actually do that. I was going to say go and harass him on his channel and say, hey, go to Creative Studio Live, and he'll say, excuse me, what are you talking about?
You can't ignore a petition though. So
exactly. The popular vote, the votes of the people. Excellent job. Well, we are right on time here. So we will be back next week. Now, what you need to do, because next week will be over on Creative Source, you need to jump into the description of this video right now. You need to click on the button that says subscribe to Mike's channel here. And that way you won't miss the notification for next week, where we'll be talking about a topic to be decided. So any final words and thoughts from you tonight here, Mike?
Not really. It's been a great show. I think most of us are going to be using virtual drums because we just don't have the opportunity to work with a real drummer. And so I'm just going to say use them well. Or as always with a home studio, there are lots of limitations in cost, availability of other musicians, equipment, that sort of thing. So we're always going to make, you must make music regardless of whether you've got a real drummer or not. So if you have to use a virtual drummer, use it well. That's my final point.
I couldn't have said it any better myself, so I won't. I'll only finish by saying that apparently I lost, so 90,500 to 80,000. So despite you choosing Earthling as our judge tonight, it's not gone well for me. Thanks everyone for watching. This has been Creative Studio Live for another week, and we will see you next time.
See ya.